There was an interview this week that he did where 3 times he had the opportunity to call this what it is. It's a genocide. It's a genocide. And he wouldn't do it. He wouldn't say anything about sanctions. He said he's really uneasy about that. And then when it was posited to him, well, what about South African sanctions? He just shit the bed because he knows.
What did he say? What did he say? Because I watched everything until that, because that's a great follow-up. That's the follow-up.
Ash was asking about the BDS movement and talking about its efficacy, and he was acknowledging.
We can actually pull it up. I could try to find it.
It was pull it up. He basically, in so many words, acknowledges that what was done in South Africa actually had purpose and is just, and doesn't clue in that she's directly comparing the two situations, pretty much.
I see. He doesn't get it. He doesn't.
I'm pretty sure he gets it. I think he's just choosing his words extremely carefully, right? Like every single time he was asked, would you call this or characterize this or agree with like the preliminary ruling of the ICJ in this case? What do you think about this in terms of, saying there's a plausible case for genocide? He was just like, well, we could argue semantics, but what I do want to say is that the United States should not be sending $14 billion of military aid to Israel.
Yeah.
Just like went down that path. And it was like that 3 times in a row. But
if he can rein in the aid, I think that's good. But I just want to Bernie's been, he's been getting on my last nerve because of this. First of all, I worked at AJ Plus of Al Jazeera Media. I have a good co-worker friend, Dina Takruri, who's done amazing work. She's Palestinian. She asked him when he was running in 2016. Yeah. Yes. No, yeah. She was asked him about BDS that long ago. And I felt uncomfortable because at the time, first of all, I've always been for BDS, all that. But at the time I was like, man, he's running for president. Let's ask him a different question. And imagine not changing your stance between 2016 and 2024, given the rightward turn in Israel, given everything that's obviously happened in the genocide now. It's entrenched in him. And the other, and I don't know if you guys picked up on this, but when he said, what does that mean? Kept on saying it. What does that mean? What does genocide mean? What does that mean? You know what he said that about also was reparations. He's always been uncommitted on reparations. Always asked, what does that mean when you say reparations? Right? So, and it kind of gives me pause, and I'm thinking back and I'm like, I just don't think he's actually committed. He's not committed to the idea of reparations, of like real racial economic equity, of our own truth and reconciliation. He clearly doesn't understand the facets of structural racism, in my opinion. And he clearly doesn't understand the Palestinian struggle and liberation. And he cannot characterize Israel-Palestine for what it is. Because he's gummed up. He calls everything the class war. Doesn't say class war, but he's so clear on everything else. What does that mean? Suddenly he gets into semantics. I think it's revealing.
Why do you think that is? Like, obviously, it's just we have no idea why he has that mental block, but he is so typically on point.
Does he identify? How does he identify too? Like, I've been Bernie, right? How does he identify?
And like politically?
No, because there's people who are, I've seen a lot of people who just say, because I have a Jewish background or whatever the case may be, I'm going to side with
He's
this.
Jewish, but I mean,
I zip my mouth about that, or I'm not going to, I'll ride the line about that. So I'm just asking for, as far as it comes to the genocide, right? But, we loved Bernie at some point in time, still love him, mean it. But again, nobody is above getting checked. Like nobody's above getting questioned. I don't care. And it's been years and your stance still haven't changed and those kind of things. It's okay for us to, again, call a thing a thing. We're not just going to keep writing him and throwing Bernie's name out there and talking about what he's done. He's done amazing things. He's pushed for amazing things. But in these right now, properly, respectively, we can still call a thing and say he's not doing what he should do in this case.
Yeah, and I think he does identify, obviously, as Jewish American. I think his family were Holocaust survivors. I think in part, it absolutely has made him who he is. He spent some time in a kibbutz when he was younger, but also so did Noam Chomsky. You know what I'm saying? And so it seems like Bernie has been. It's like a little bit like rubber hits the road. In practice, he was one of the only few outspoken senators on reining in U.S. aid to Israel, talking about the occupation. I don't think he's squeamish. I don't think he's squeamish about the word occupation. But when it's like, oh, rubber hits the road, there's a massive massacre here. It's awful. A lot of Israeli casualties, different from every other war between Gaza and Israel, right? Where there are only a couple Israeli casualties whose names no one fucking remembers, of course. But now all of a sudden that, we're getting into over 1,000. Now suddenly it's on. And of course, the rest is whatever it is. So it is, again, and with all the liberals that we're seeing who are progressive until Palestine, it's like, okay, you say all the thing. What happens when shit plays out, when you really are tested on whether you stand in solidarity with occupied people, right? Or you really believe in racial justice? Well, then do you believe in reparations? Do you really, oh no, that's too far. Or do you believe in defunding the police? Or do you believe in reining in the police? Oh no, but not on my block. Like, you know what I'm saying? We're finding these lines with everybody.
Yeah. Sorry, my computer completely crashed. I do have the clip ready if you want to watch it though. Yeah, I had to restart, but let me bring that in. So this is the first clip. There are two. I don't know which one this is. I think this is her trying to ask him about genocide, but this is his response on how many times it takes to give his non-answer.
In your view, is what Israel is doing in Gaza a genocide?
In my view, it is absolutely disgraceful, horrible, and I'm doing, as a United States Senator, everything I can to end it. And where I'm sitting is, and I don't know how many people know this, every year the United States provides about $3.5 billion in military aid to Israel. On top of that, there is a bill. I was supposed to be here earlier. Couldn't come because a bill came up for not just all for Israel, $95 billion, including $14 billion for Israel. And I have led the opposition to that. I do not want to see the United States complicit in what Netanyahu and his right-wing lunatic friends are doing right now to the Palestinian people. So my job right now is to support what the United Nations is trying to do, have a humanitarian ceasefire, see if we can get the humanitarian aid immediately in there, and work out, as complex and difficult as it is, some type of long-term solution to what's going on there.
But do you buy the South African case at the International Court of Justice that what Israel is doing in Gaza constitutes genocide or genocidal acts?
I think, look, we can argue about definitions. It is horrible. Right
really
now,
frustrating to watch.
29,000 people have been killed, and some 70,000 have been injured. Some 65% of the housing units have been destroyed or damaged. And I am worried right now, and I almost wonder why I'm in the UK and not back in the US dealing with this stuff, is that we have hundreds of thousands of children are facing starvation. That's what I have to work on right now.
But if one agrees that it is a genocide, it means that other states have a legal right and duty to prevent genocide.
The international community gets mobilized.
We can talk about that. But
so stop fucking river to the seeing this bitch,
what I'm trying to do is what I think is probably maybe, and I can do it because I'm a senator. You can't. Right now, maybe, if we tell Mr. Netanyahu that he's not getting a check for $10 billion more to continue his aggressive action, he and his right-wing friends may decide it is not a good idea to continue to do that. So that's where I am coming from.
In addition to stopping the billions of dollars in military aid that Israel gets from the United States every year, would you back calls for a cultural, sporting, and economic boycott of Israel?
I am nervous about economic boycotts of any country.
It's just so frustrating.
But right now, what
I get queasy.
people want to do, they can do what they want to do.
Question.
They're boycotting themselves, man. Their economy's fucking
the United States Senate, and I'm kind of leading that effort in the Senate.
No big deal.
Is to tell Netanyahu that he is not going to get any more U.S. aid.
Did you feel nervous about the boycott movement against apartheid South Africa? Was that a concern you had at the time?
He's good.
What I thought that as an apartheid state at that point, it was important to put pressure. But people can do as they want. And
there you go.
That's all.
Do you think that it's right that British citizens and American citizens can go and fight in the IDF when, as you say, there are such profound humanitarian concerns in Gaza?
Well, I think if British and American people want to do that, I suppose they have the right to do it. It's not something that I really.
No, they don't.
Do you think they should have the right?
Look, I think what the Israeli government doing now is horrible, and I'm not quite sure why people would want to be, part of that.
He hasn't spent enough time in the West Bank. I think that's also really clear. But I just want to say, I don't. When I criticize Bernie, Bernie's an ally in this. He's not a leader. I think it's important. Yeah. He's not a leader, but he's an ally. Rashida Tlaib, leader. Those who've called for. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe chat knows. I don't know.
He hasn't called for ceasefire yet.
He hasn't called for ceasefire. Yeah.
Right.
No. He's in an interview saying that I don't know how you could have a ceasefire with an enemy like Hamas. And you're
which is no different. It's no fucking different than the Netanyahu line. That is the Netanyahu line. Mm-hmm. It's the centrist democratic line too. That's fine. Again, he is an ally in reining in some of the money. Cool. But he's not sadly super important. Super important.
Yeah, I think that Kyle put this really best in his video about this is showing the limits to the institutional progressive position to where you can go far, but you can't go all the way. You can acknowledge certain elements, but you can't say the word it's frustrating because he knows that he's being intellectually dishonest. When he describes the way that Israel is systematically exterminating the Palestinian people, he knows that is a genocide, but he can't say it. For some reason, political reasons, I don't know. Again, as Francesca said, yes, ally reining in the funding. I think that's important, but it is so frustrating because we know he knows better, but he's not saying it. So it just kind of feels like there's this level of disingenuity that makes his legacy feel tarnished, right? I mean, he's still fighting more than other senators, but I mean, fuck. Can we not do a little bit more?
He's saying he's uncomfortable with an economic boycott of Israel while also saying he wants to cut off U.S. funding of Israel. How does that make any sense whatsoever? I mean, come on, man.
I think what I'm hearing a lot is it's just a lot of disappointment because Bernie is everybody loves him. We've been all rooting for him for years, wanted him to be president, all kinds of things, all the things, right? So seeing him sit in this interview and speak in circles and almost just not want to say the wrong thing, but still present himself as okay. But I don't we can say that what's happening is horrible, but to really sit here and say it's a genocide, I don't know if I want to get to that point or cross that line or, tickle that a little bit. But it is horrible what's happening. The amount of people that's dying, it's crazy. But to say, and the interviewer made a good job by her questions were clear and to the point. And he still was well, I just and that's what we're hearing. I think it's just more of a disappointment. Bernie is an ally in this, but we should just leave him in the ally chair, right? And focus on the fact that he's not a leader and really just push and continue to push the people who are leading and wanting this and to call it a genocide and holding the president accountable and anybody else. It just sucks because, seeing Bernie just sit here and not be able to be straightforward and call a thing, it sucks. It's a disappointment, but we can call it a disappointment and walk away from it. We can't do nothing about that disappointment over there. He's still an ally, but he's you said, Francesca, he's not a leader. And that's an important point. So,
I would love to know. He kept saying what Israel's doing over there is so horrible. Well, what's so horrible about it? Explain to me what's so horrible about it. I mean, you're saying you don't want this economic boycott or cultural boycott. You won't call it genocide. You think there shouldn't be a ceasefire because Israel has a right to defend itself against Hamas, which again, their version of that is to literally do what you're seeing now. So what is so horrible about it? Tell me what's so horrible about it. Explain what's so horrible about it. Explain what the difference is between what's going on in Gaza right now and what happens in the West Bank. And what's so horrible about it? And if there's any comparison to, we were bringing up apartheid in South Africa, you could say that's horrible too, right? But you'd also have no problem calling it apartheid because the reason it's horrible is because it was apartheid. So explain to me what's horrible about what's going on in Gaza right now. Use words to explain what makes it so horrible.
I mean, I think the other thing that's important to note is how there truly isn't a moneyed, organized, Palestinian lobby in Congress, and there hasn't been for a long time. That happens when you're just trying to stay alive and survive, and Palestinians, the diaspora, are trying to do. And they've U.S. campaign is a great is a great one. Obviously, other organizations, Adala, Justice, like there's a bunch of groups, but